Hi and welcome. This is Derek Feldman. I'm excited to be with you today. Derek with Achieve, of course. We're talking with Natalie Guzman about developing corporate relationships. I cannot wait. We're going to have a great conversation with my friend and colleague here. And what's even better, she's with me in person. I know that sometimes we've done a lot of these where we've had guests from everywhere else, but Natalie is here with me, which will be really fun. So as usual, if you've attended any of our sessions, of course, we are recording these, so no need to take all of those great notes. We'll make sure and get a copy of this in our Achieve Access that you can get that later. We do not actually have a PowerPoint per se from today. It's really conversational, but I will have a few slides just to direct the conversation for you as well. Of course, any of you out there that need credits from CEUs to CFREs, all of those things, reply to our survey piece that's after this. We'll make sure and give you any of that credit as well. And also, as you know, this is part of our series of every month, interviewing an individual and then going to our lessons learned. Of course, we have one that will happen after the 4th of July. And that next one, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is another opportunity for you to learn from other experts as well. So without further ado, I want to get going into our conversation with Natalie today. So I've known Natalie over the course of the last year or two, and it's been incredible. Natalie is not only a good friend, she's an incredible professional, been at this for a long time, working with a lot of different nonprofits, holds a great corporate hat role at Fifth Third Bank, and really, I would say, one of the key corporate engagement experts that I have found doing the work out there. So she is incredible, and I'm glad that she's with us. Natalie works for Fifth Third Bank. She's their senior vice president, handles a lot of their community engagement, community relationships, partnerships, marketing from that standpoint, works closely with the Fifth Third Bank Foundation, of course, and all of the other Fifth Third kind of entities, primarily here in Indiana, but works closely with other colleagues in other states at times when they need to coordinate things together. So without further ado, Natalie, welcome.
Thank you. It's our pleasure to be here.
Well, we're excited that you're here with us today. Of course, people on here, if they have any questions, we'll be putting those in throughout the session, and I'll make sure and kind of ask you some of those, of course, too. But why don't you get started and tell us a little bit about how you got your job? I know it's always interesting. It's like, how do people get to where they are? For myself, I fell into it. Maybe you did too. I don't know.
Might have a little dumb luck in there, but I actually got my degree in public relations and marketing. Never really thought I'd probably fall into a position where I had responsibilities for working with the community, working with charitable giving and not-for-profit organizations. But that is what has occurred over the years. And it's really, I think, been taking the marketing expertise that I have, the public relations, all of that coming full circle. And when you fit community relations in there, they all really go really well hand in hand. So I started at the bank about 11 years ago, and just for clarity, because I know not everyone is here in Indianapolis, the structure of the bank, we're obviously a super regional bank. We're a large institution. I oversee pretty much the entire state of Indiana, with the exception of Evansville and a few of the branches and counties that roll over to our Chicago territory. But I oversee the marketing, the public relations, internal communications, and then on the community side, all the charitable giving that we do on a local level.
Excellent. So when you started at the bank, was community and relations and all of that part of it, or did that kind of morph and get added to it?
There's been a lot of morphing. So interestingly, I always had a hand in it because of the PR side. So if there's anything that was unique that we were working with a not-for-profit on, we obviously wanted to get that good news out into the media. So I always had a hand in it. When I first started at the bank 11 years ago for the affiliate, and I'll talk a little bit later probably about our affiliate model, but in our affiliate, our process was, I'll just say bad. It was not strategic. We did not even have charitable giving guidelines at the time when I started. So we had a committee process where monthly, when we came in monthly, you'd have a group of people that would come in and we would decision things around the table. And I would have my stack literally of between 50 and 75 requests per month. Lot to manage. And we would sit around this table and it would be, okay, you know, what are we going to do? Who do we want to support? You know, and all these wonderful things, of course. But what ended up happening, and I started becoming very aware of, even though I was not responsible for charitable giving, is we would give sometimes 3 or 4 times throughout the year to the same organization, which is fabulous for that organization. However, could probably be better for the bank and for the organization if we got a little more strategic around our process. So when the opportunity was presented to me under new leadership at the bank, I gladly took on the role, with the exception that I would blow up the entire thing and start over. And that's
I think that's fun.
It was fun. It was fun. And when you have new leadership come in, you sometimes have that opportunity to do those things. So
yeah. And so how does corporate or community relations fit within the larger structure of what you've done? Our Fifth Third Bank.
Fifth Third?
Yeah.
So let me talk a little bit then about our business model, so that'll give a little more perspective for those of you listening. Fifth Third Bank operates on an affiliate model, which is really a point of differentiation from us and anyone else in the financial institution. And what that means is we have this affiliate model. And so when you think from a consumer standpoint, a commercial standpoint, or a community standpoint, I don't flow up to the chief marketing officer at our Bancorp. Somebody who works in our commercial division does not flow up to a person over that commercial bank. We report to a president and CEO right here on the ground in the community that we serve. That's a real big point of differentiation. For this conversation, we'll just speak to the community. What that does, we're this huge $125 billion powerhouse that sits in Cincinnati, but we operate and feel like a small community bank.
Very interesting.
Our dollars are local. The giving is local, and we make those decisions right here. So we're doing the best thing that we can for the markets and the communities that we serve. So there are, across our footprint, we're super regional, mostly in the Midwest. We flow down to Florida. We're in Georgia, Chicago. We're in Michigan. We'll never be a trillionaire like our friends at Chase and PNC. We pretty much will stay right in this mid territory.
Very cool. Very cool. So when in talking about a little bit about your role there, is it just you? Does it feel like that sometimes?
No. Well, yes, it does feel like that sometimes. But the interesting thing about our model as well is I manage the local charitable giving dollars, and in most affiliates, that's how it does work. It could change a little bit. Where maybe a marketing director is the one overseeing the charitable, it could be another person, but typically it is. And then we also have a community relations department, and that person, the marketing director, and then the foundation all work very closely on our giving. Yeah. So separate pots of money. Right. I have the local dollars that I'm able to manage, which gives us that very good community feel. And then the community relations person, I work very well together to look at what do we need to do from a Community Reinvestment Act standpoint, because banks are highly regulated.
CRA, right?
CRA, yes, and we have to be able to serve the underserved and show the federal government that we are doing that. So we work very close together, and then we work very close with Heidi Jark, who runs the foundation. So from an overall perspective, to make sure that we are giving and supporting the communities at the best way we can. So cool. Lots of people involved and great big teams across our affiliate that all work together to do the right thing.
And so there are several other Natalies in the country. Yes. How many of those, in a way?
So we have 15 different affiliates. So when you think about that, you've got a local person that's managing those local dollars. You have that community relations person that's kind of the CRA person, would be the contact for grants. So if somebody's going the grant route versus local giving, that would be the contact. And that would also be the contact locally that would feed someone up to the foundation side.
Yeah. So let's talk about successes, things that have worked, and then the things that have maybe not worked as well. It's always funny to get both sides of the perspective here. Okay. So what would you say has been, and maybe share with us an example of an initiative or something you've done that you've really, it has created great things for the bank, your customers, anything else, and for the community organization?
Wow, there's a lot of them. So let me talk a little bit. I think it'd be helpful for you all to know kind of what our platform is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the wonderful thing about our affiliate model is, yes, you get these different people and 12 different affiliates kind of having the autonomy to do their own thing, but that could perhaps give some inconsistency as a brand and who you are as a company. So we have an overarching umbrella, and that's financial empowerment. And it's just part of our DNA. It's something that we've always done, but we are committed to empowering people to be more financially secure in their life. Gotcha. So that is something that we share across the footprint. The unique thing when we do talk about the affiliate model, though, is it also helps us me here in Indiana, I can look at what the specific needs are of the community. So I can create the partnerships that work right here for the community and for Fifth Third Bank here locally. And that's as well as my counterparts do the same. So there have been a lot of unique partnerships that we've created over the years. And when you think about financial empowerment as our platform, how do you build that into the arts?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
There's a tough one. Money, finances, and art. That doesn't sound too sexy. But there was a really unique way with a local partner here at the Indiana Repertory Theater where I just kind of went to them with an idea and said, okay, we support and it's fabulous. And, we love the arts and we can get great branding and we can entertain customers and our employees can get engaged. But how can we actually make an impact here? And they have a large youth audience program that tries to bring in youth from across the state to be able to see performances, many times for students that are underserved that would never be able to experience the theater. And I said, how do we build in financial empowerment to that? How do we build in something bigger where we're making an impact? And so we created the Fifth Third Bank Essay Contest. We select a play every year and we determine what that is. And somehow we build financial empowerment into that. And then we give them a great resource. We give them education beforehand so they're learning about the play before they come. And we award scholarships for the best essays that are written. So
very cool.
A unique way to take our platform, something that typically wouldn't go hand in hand, and create that. And that's really, no matter where we are, that's what we like to do, is to create partnerships. Everybody can write a check. But when we always consider ourselves as, we don't build banks, we build communities. And when we can build communities is when we have strong partnerships with the not-for-profits that serve those communities.
Because I want to come back to partnerships in a little bit later and talk about what's the ideal look like.
Okay.
If I had to make a pizza out of a partnership, what are all the ingredients that I want to put in there? But before we get there, you talked about financial empowerment in your platform. Are there other areas that you mentioned a little bit kind of the arts and others? Yeah. What are some other areas that you've used your platform in a way?
Well, they don't, it's not always built in. I guess that's the other thing that I would put out there, that for those listening that are thinking, okay, if I would like to talk to a bank, do I always have to fit in whatever that cause is? Sometimes you do. There are, certain corporations that have they've drawn a line in the sand and this is their cause and that is all they support. Financial empowerment is our platform, and we try to build in as many programs and gifts as we can to surround that. But sometimes it doesn't because it's whatever the need. So I think that's another positive for our structure, that because of this autonomy, that we can support the platform of the bank, but we can serve that local community need. So we look for different things, but I think consistently, to give you some examples from the corporate perspective, Hunger is an initiative and is something that we support. So we have our own holiday, in case you don't know, Fifth Third Day, which is May 3rd, 5/3.
Nice.
So that is our internal holiday. We celebrate that every year. And as we try to engage our employees into being proactive and supporting the communities, we bring in an element into Hunger and doing something around that. So we packaged, I got to think from the corporate, I don't want to get the numbers. I can tell you locally, we packaged 60,000 meals in a day, and it was over 1 million meals that we packed just in one day for the entire footprint that we serve. So there's many things. And again, it's that affiliate structure. So if somebody's on the line is listening and they are in Chicago, there might be a few different things that appeal to that affiliate, but overall financial empowerment, economic development, foreclosure prevention, affordable housing, there are those consistent things that we look at as a bank to support.
And as a bank, and as you've got shareholders and all of these fun things, do they come to you with certain things that they want to see sometimes? I mean, I know you mentioned there's a lot of different people involved
Absolutely.
there. So what would be success if they were to come to you in something like that? Or do they look at certain things as a win as well when it comes to community relationships?
Well, so I'm approached by a lot of different people in a lot of different ways, right? So there is sometimes that shareholder, the customer who either works for an organization or just truly cares about a cause. Sometimes that's an employee. We have our own local boards, advisory boards in every market. So sometimes it's things that come to us from them. So we look at all those opportunities to see what fits. The hardest part about my job and anyone else in my role is we have to say no sometimes, and that always stinks. But it's a reality. So we look for what is the best thing that we can do. Back to my original point, I try to be strategic about that and put a process in place that helps the not-for-profits in the community, but also helps us so that we're being strategic. We're trying to meet the goals of the bank while also really empowering the organizations to know, okay, how do I get money from Fifth Third or create a partnership? When? What does that look like? So we try to make that work for everyone.
Very good. When it comes to the employees, I'm sure they ask you a lot as well. How do I get involved, or what can I do from the community? What is Fifth Third doing from the employee side?
Well, I mentioned Fifth Third Day, and one thing we do around there is we have grants that we give away. A lot of different processes of how that works across our entire footprint, but the bottom line is to let those employees have some say in what that is. Philanthropy, community involvement is really just part of our DNA. It's what's expected of our employees. They know that. You might not be aware, but we actually have the oldest foundation in the country created by a financial institution. We were the first to create one in 1948. So it is just part of our DNA. So when you learn the culture and you are employed at Fifth Third Bank, you know that is one of the expectations is to be involved. So we try to support as many things as we can. One way is during those special events like Fifth Third Day, of giving them opportunity to make a nomination of what organization should be supported. And it has to be one that they're directly involved with. And we give those grants out across our footprint. Other things that we do, again, this could be different in every affiliate, but something that we do here is, when we go through our giving process, I think I have a good idea of what our employees like and want to support. And obviously I know what we want to do from a bank perspective, but as an employee and as a shareholder, shouldn't you have a say in that too?
Right.
So we have started creating, it's basically just a survey that we put out. We select some organizations and we say, here are 5 or 6 organizations that we want you, here's what they do, and just vote. Tell us who you want to support this year.
Wow.
And then we split up a chunk of money, and it's one of the highlights of my year to be able to call those organizations who did not even come and ask us for money and tell them that they're getting money. So.
I bet they left the office that day a little earlier.
Yeah, probably.
All right. Well, let's talk about, thank you for all that on Fifth Third. And I know that you'll be talking more about that. But we're going to shift a little bit now to some things that you've learned and some tips for our audience, because I think that is really, from somebody sitting in your shoes, I know that we each have our own pet peeves. Sometimes we've got our do's and don'ts, and so we'd love to get into that just a little bit. And like I said, anybody that's got any questions, feel free to put those in, and we'll get to some questions towards the end here, the last 20 minutes. But let's start out with what would be some suggestions, some do's, some recommendations for some organizations when they're looking to somebody like you or Fifth Third to get support or partnership.
I think first and foremost, finding out what that corporation or that person, what are they looking for? Go in. Probably if you talk about pet peeves, and I just have a couple of them, and I'm a half full kind of girl, but the 2 things that really get under my skin a little bit is I would just say the assumptive sell that, here's my menu and this is the right sponsorship for you, instead of really listening to find out what that is. I think that sometimes it is just looking at a menu and going, you know what, that's it. And it isn't easy. But if you truly want to create a partnership with a corporation, you've got to understand what they're looking for. You have to understand their needs. What are their strategic goals? And then create something for them that works. It might be something that is already created. Doesn't mean you're reinventing the wheel. It's just more of that consultative listening approach versus coming in with knowing what the corporation already needs.
And when you see a menu option, I mean, some of our clients have done that, of course, and they've got all these lists there. Is there something that goes off in your head when you look at that to be like, no, that's interesting? Or is there some things that you look for a little bit differently than others?
Well, and that might be, there certainly are, and it's probably
affiliate based.
And it wouldn't be a cookie cutter to every corporation would be looking for the same thing. First and foremost for us is one, okay, are we going to be doing the right thing for the community if we do this? Does it meet the financial empowerment platform? Does it enhance Fifth Third's reputation? right? Because we're always going to do the right thing in that community. Doing the right thing comes first and foremost. But I think everybody understands there's also a business opportunity when you have successful partnerships with not-for-profits and community organizations.
Agreed.
So how can that partnership help strengthen our reputation? Can it help build our brand image? I look for those things as well. Growth opportunities, that may be something on the other side of the line here that you don't think of, but that's certainly something I look at is, could this help propel the growth strategies of the bank? Because sometimes it can actually drive some business in a very unique way. Opportunity for customer and prospective relationships too. Sometimes that's coming through entertainment, table sponsorships or the arts or whatever it might be. And then I would also say employee interaction and customer interaction opportunities, and then CRA. So for me, if all those things are all packaged up, that's like the perfect storm. It's like, oh my goodness, okay, where do I sign and how much are we going to do?
Exactly.
But it's not always all those things. Sometimes it is, it's the small things. And sometimes, like I mentioned, it is looking at that menu and going, hey, right there is exactly what I need. I'll let you know, we want to support you. We can do a table. That way we can entertain some customers, make sure they're aware of your mission. But that's really fits for us right now. Other times I see a menu and I'm like, you know what? I'm interested in that. But what if we did this?
Yeah.
I am a what if kind of girl. So trying to figure out what can we create that's unique and different that will help us stand apart in that event or that program or whatever it might
So
be.
almost looking at it from that, here are the levels. Let's use this as our foundation of our conversation to go from there.
A lot of times it is the foundation.
Yeah.
To kind of start the conversation.
Absolutely. I always think it's funny when our clients will either come to us and say, Derek, do you think this price tag is the appropriate one for this level? And I would say, well, it's always what the market bears, and whether the benefits are worth. I don't know if you have any comments around that either. I'm sure you see some astronomical pricing on benefits.
And for this, I can only speak to the Indiana market, but I think people have I can gauge it pretty well. I mean, if someone's way off, I usually can have that very frank conversation with them because, I get a lot of asks. So I've got a good library in my head to go, oh, wait a minute, this does not feel right. But I think for the most part, people are pretty consistent.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen anything that's been very...
they want a $900,000 sponsorship on something. Of
that's
course.
usually $50,000 market. Yeah, no, I don't see a lot of that. So.
I know that one of the core things a lot of organizations offer as a benefit, and you mentioned it to a certain extent, is recognition. Mm-hmm. And I know that some people value recognition more than others. Right. Can you talk to any of how you look at recognition?
Sure. Interestingly, I think I could never have a chicken dinner again, and I'd be perfectly fine with it because I know it's this way across the country. There are so many different dinners, right? Dinners, lunches, now breakfast is kind of the new trend. For me, it's how do I get brand recognition sometimes without even being there? So I guess that's as a takeaway when you think about a do is don't get upset if someone doesn't want to be at your chicken dinner, or your event. Sometimes they can be present without being present. So maybe think outside of the box to go, okay, if they don't, they're telling me no, what's behind the no? Is it that they truly don't have the money or they really want to support me, but that's not the right fit? And if that's not, then how can I adapt that? So think about that. If I come to you and I say, you know what, I can give you $5,000 for this chicken dinner, the event, whatever that is, which is all fabulous. We are, yes, there's branding and I have to, the challenge for me is I've got how many, 180 chicken
we could go to every one of
year.
Our clients as well.
How do I fill that table? Nothing worse than a table being empty and your corporate name is on there. But if I can give you the money for the event and you pull out the back end of that, of your cost that goes into it for the materials and the chicken and everything else, and then you just brand me while I'm there, you actually will make more money.
Right.
So I guess I just challenge you to think of it more from a business side of how can you create something that is better for your corporate sponsor when you're actually saving more money too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it kind of goes along the other line too. I know that some people have come to us and said, well, Derek, if Fifth Third or some other bank wants to reach a certain segment of a market, pure marketing, they'd probably go out and just use their marketing dollars and do it that way. And it's another colleague of mine said to me, but the reason we work with organizations is because we're aligning together in some certain way. I don't know if you can speak anything to that.
Yeah, and sometimes they cross over, right? So you can also be meeting your marketing needs through that partnership. I think can be two distinct ways and two distinct things. And I think the community side for a company really can helps you get to the heart of what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
That gets to the consumer, that gets to business leaders, that gets to community leaders and political leaders, and really drives back to that reputation side. But I think it also has to be authentic.
Oh, yeah. It will look false, and people will sniff it out now these days, of course.
Absolutely.
One of the things that also comes up, and maybe this is a do and don't, and I don't know if you're going to talk about this, is the Fifth Third Bank logo or recognition with many other logos. I mean, how do you feel? Mm-hmm. I get mixed reviews. Some want to just be present, and some are like, we're just one of many.
Right. And I think it's a little bit of both for us. There's some times where I would prefer exclusivity, and sometimes that's a kind of, I have to put a stake in the ground on that. And that just depends on what it is. If it's something around financial empowerment, and we're doing financial training, well, maybe I don't want 5 other banks doing the same thing. Or maybe I do. I mean, sometimes because of human resource and human capital, sometimes we actually do partner across with other banks to bring more in. So it depends. I mean, I'm not giving you probably the answer or the answer everyone wants, but I think it really just depends on the situation.
Yeah. Exclusivity. You mentioned that a little bit. I know some organizations will offer that. Mm-hmm. Is that usually come up during the conversation, or do they, how does that usually happen?
When it gets important for me is when it's that title sponsorship level. Yeah. We're the Fifth Third Bank Broadway Art Fair. I don't want another bank close to that because there's that dollar value that goes into that, right? So I think it depends, but the level that you're at, if it's a table sponsorship, you can't, as a corporation, really demand exclusivity for that. And we have to step back and be cognizant of that we're trying to help propel the mission of whatever the organization is. Yes, we're also trying to meet what we're doing, but we have to be realistic. Yeah, we can't own everything in the market and exclude. You're not being truly philanthropic if you do that as a corporation.
Said from a true professional. Agreed. All right, let's talk about any other do's. Other things
I have a long list. The good news is my don't list is small. So I guess that goes back to my being a half cup full. Half cup full. Yes, I'm saying that right. Find out what a corporation's giving process is. I think everyone pretty much understands that, but that helps keep you on time. That keeps you in. That gives you more opportunity that if you know that process, that you're getting the paperwork in at the right time, which probably leads you to know that one of my don'ts is don't miss deadlines. If there's a November 15th is the cutoff for Fifth Third, forget your paperwork. That's the cutoff. It's kind of like going back to school. No final exams are accepted after the fact. And follow the process. Once you learn what that process is, follow it. Certainly ask questions, but be respectful of the process that's in place. I think one of the most important advice I can give you is to use your network to get to the right person. I can only imagine. I've never been on the side of being the one looking for the money. I think it's much easier to give the money away. But there's so many different corporations. There's so many individual donors. How do you cultivate? How do you grow those? So build a strong network that can connect you, that can get you to the right person. I would say that can really propel you if you do that, and propel you no matter what organization that you're in.
And I'm sure that it builds trust, right? So if somebody, that says this is an organization that you well respect, and it probably means a lot more.
It absolutely does. And, if my president walks into my office and she says, hey, so-and-so just sent me something, they're involved in this organization, we need to take it's
a second look. Yeah,
we take a second look, and I look at everything and I review everything. But yes, I mean, we all understand the power of relationships. Send complete requests. Okay, so here's my absolute number one pet peeve: when I get something that is it's for support and it's event driven, and nowhere on the documentation is where the event is and when the event is. How about a date on the? So I would just suggest put the date, the time, and the location on every piece you create. Put it in your email, put it everywhere. So there's no question of when that event is. Payment materials. So yes, it's great to go out and know that you've secured a sponsorship or just secured support, But I think on the back end, your finance person and your executive director, or if you are the executive director, you want the money. So, to help expedite that, I think learning what is the process for payment. Does a corporation pay net 30? Are they paying immediately when they get that, so that you make sure that you're getting all the fiscal responsibilities out of the way, and that helps on both sides. That helps on the corporation and certainly helps you. Thank yous, personal thank yous are so huge. Yes, emails even count, but I tell you, if you want to take it one step further, the corporations or the organizations I work with that just really get to my heartstrings are the ones that write me personal notes.
Yep.
It just makes a difference. And that could be thank you for the support. It could be, hey, I saw in the newspaper, I heard. It could be a congratulatory, but that just really strengthens the relationship and goes back to the trust factor.
Absolutely. It's funny that those, some would say that's an outdated form of communication, but it still means the most.
Everybody can do email and text, right?
Exactly.
Takes a lot more effort to write a note.
Exactly.
And the last couple things I would say is learn from your challenges and your mistakes, and how you do that is by asking for feedback. I think people that sit on my side of the desk are very willing. I'm speaking for everyone across the country, but I will do that. Hoosiers are like that. I think people are willing to give you feedback. What didn't work, or what could you do better? And I think it helps you actually, as you try to continue to build partnerships, whether it's existing partnership or it was a declination, for you to learn why or why not, and what can you do better. When you ask those questions, it gives a great opportunity for you to strengthen that relationship and actually to uncover opportunities that you may not know existed.
Great. I have a couple other do's I want to ask you about.
Okay.
A little bit more probably on the minute level, but
okay.
Presentation materials. What do you like more versus the other? More, PowerPoint, very slick looking versus, content. And so what do you look for? What impresses you?
Goodness. Okay. So this is probably completely personal. You probably get a different story with everyone, right? Eventually, yes, I look, because I'm a marketing background,
right.
Of course.
Probably most people in your shoes have that marketing aspect
probably
as well.
So. But what's more important to me, I think, is going back to what we talked about earlier, and a conversation. Conversation. If somebody comes in and they've got that PowerPoint and they're setting it in front of me and we're going to go page by page, I'm just like, oh my gosh, get to the point. First of all, I'm usually at the very back page because I just go right to the price like any normal. That's just a sales thing. That's human behavior. So I think if you're bringing materials in, I would wait and not go into any of the materials and have a conversation first. Tell me, I'll back that up a little bit. If you like doing presentations in paper, or your computer is your safety net, I would say first start the conversation and identify needs and find out about the corporation first.
Very good.
Then go into your presentation.
Yeah. All right, initial reach out. We're getting this question right now.
Okay.
The question is, how would you recommend in somebody like your shoes? Is it usually work best to just reach out by phone if you have no connection, by email if you have no connection, because we feel like there might be a match?
Well, that's tough.
I'm sure you get your email and your phone is already off the hook usually.
It's for me, email is always. I'm more accessible by email. So I'm speaking for myself on that. I think I could say that's probably that way for most people now. Yes, I sit in an office, but I'm very rarely in my office. I'm moving. I've got my laptop, and I've got my phone, or I've got my iPad. We're mobile now as a country and a society. So I think email, at least for me, definitely easier. I'm happy to meet with people. And I think most are, but I also, just to give you an idea of how many organizations we supported in 2013, 160.
Holy cow.
Now, there is no way, because I don't just manage charitable giving, I can meet with 160 organizations in a year. I just can't.
Right.
So I guess maybe that goes back to don't take things personally. Sometimes it really is just a matter of time that someone doesn't have it. So if someone won't meet with you, but they push you to the process, don't always think of that as a bad thing. What I try to tell people is, here's the process. I need your request by November 15th. As long as you follow the guidelines of everything I need, we're good.
Right.
But if I read through this and I know there's something that's missing, or I need more, or I have an idea that comes up that you haven't proposed, I'll reach back out to you. So I know that's kind of I have to put my faith in that someone's going to do this. And that's just speaking to my side of it, but you've got to have a little faith in the person you're working with. So don't take it negatively if you can't get that meeting. But I'm also a salesperson at heart, so I'd keep trying too.
Absolutely. All right, one more I want to ask you about. You kind of mentioned this around thank you notes. Post, because you mentioned you do events and other things. What do you look for in sort of that stewardship post event? What's important for you and probably somebody in your shoes to see from an organization?
Well, so I look at things, broadly, and a lot of like big sponsorships in particular. And if you don't mind, I'll just use an example. So the Fifth Third Bank Broad Ripple Art Fair. What I love about that is one, we're a title. It is our name, so you can understand there's a price tag that goes with that, right? And so as a business person, I have a responsibility to go back to my president and my counterparts on the senior team or whomever else might ask to show the justification for that support and that level of support. And they do a fabulous job of just really looking at putting together a book and coming back and recapping. So they're not even just sending me, hey, here's the results. They're coming in and presenting it. They want to get in front of not only me, but my president and CEO and the senior team. And that makes a huge impact because yes, ultimately the decision comes from me and from the president, but that senior team, getting them as advocates for whatever the opportunity is a great opportunity as well. So that's complete feedback on why the sponsorship is important, why it worked, the results, how it, for that specific case, how many attendees were there, so that we have some quantified information to be able to make decisions about the next year. Are we renewing that sponsorship? Yeah. So it doesn't always have to be that detailed. I mean, if it's a dinner, but it would be nice. And I don't always get this of how much was raised. Mm-hmm. I know what I contributed, but it would be so great. And I would say 20% of the dinner type events. Do I get any kind of feedback on what? Of course I get an annual report, but by that time the following year, you have forgotten that. So that might be a nice takeaway for everyone is, okay, send that immediate follow-up of what were the results.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. All right. So now we're going to go to, as we sort of, this next piece is sort of that Q&A. But before we get there, just one last question for you, and that is expectations. What are your ongoing expectations of any of those 160? You mentioned things like communication. Is there just a couple bite-sized things you can tell us about expectations?
I think open communication, that's very important to me. On both sides of that, knowing also with the caveat that it may be a little harder to get to the person that on the corporate side or to that donor, but being willing to be open on both sides. Patience. Yeah. Patience is good. And being respectful of someone's time too. If the meeting's for a half hour, try to stick to that. I think that shows professionalism, it shows courtesy, and certainly shows respect. And that understanding of the process and the timeline, I think that's critical. And then the relationship building. Those, I expect somebody who, yes, I know they want to get the sponsorship or to get the gift, but what is more important to me is someone who wants to create a partnership with Fifth Third so that we really can be impactful and make a change or make a contribution to the community.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. All right. So let's go ahead and go to some questions. Okay. Feel free to put those questions into the question panel on your screen right now. And we have some coming in already. We'll take these all the way up until about 5 till the hour. We want to make sure that you get out on time, of course. So about for 10 more minutes. All right. The first question, very interesting one, is, is that we have historically received corporate support for our organization year after year. However, over the last several years, given the challenges of budgets and the economic challenges that are out there, we've seen some of our corporate partners either reduce and or completely eliminate their support. How do you maintain relationships during a difficult economic time? It's a toughie.
It is a toughie. So I do have to just, I'm going to toot our own little horn here for just 1 second, if you'll allow me, and then I'll answer the question.
Absolutely.
So, one, I think I have one of the best jobs in the world. I mean, how great that I work for this huge company and I get to give money away, right? It's just fantastic, and know that I'm actually making an impact in the communities that we serve. And I'm so proud as an employee and a shareholder. So when the downturn happened in 2008-09, what was very easy for any corporation is to look at a gap closer. And what's a gap closer? Marketing always, right?
Right.
We can always cut marketing. We can always look at human resources, and we can cut who we give to in the community. And I will happily tell you that Fifth Third Bank did not cut their funding.
Very good. Wow.
We stayed flat, but I think anyone out there will take flat over cut.
Exactly.
Now, to your point, though, or in your specific question, I think you do have to keep those conversations going. And I know what many people are finding right now with healthcare reform is they're starting to see some of those dollars do the same thing, change those corporations, what they're looking at as the financial industry. They're seeing that in the healthcare side. I think you just have to keep those lines of communication open, be understanding of what they're going for, because anyone on this side doesn't want to turn away from the things that they've supported in the past. Outside of any financial or economic downturn, I think, sometimes just corporate strategy changes, corporate mission changes. And so you just got to kind of stay on that. And I think that comes back to our conversation on listening and finding out what's going on in the organization. Find out what's happening in that corporation. What can they share with you? I have only probably had one person ask me this, and I was so impressed with it. And it was, as a business, what do you see happening in the next 3 to 5 years that will impact your giving?
Yeah.
I'm like, one, I wanted to hire them because if they think that big and that strategically, but that's a way to find out, engage from an industry standpoint, what's happening that might end up actually impacting you and those dollars you're trying to get. So no easy answer there, but I think it's keeping those lines of communication open, trying to find out what is going on. And I think it's safe to ask the question, you're going through a rough time as an industry, or, you've had a lot of changes. Do you see that? Is that coming back around? When do you see that changing? Are we still a fit when it does change? So that you get some validation for it's not just they're telling you no, right, and using the economic downturn, speech. I think that if you have that relationship, that you'll get that respect, that they will share that information with you.
Very good. Thank you. The next question comes from Lois, and I really like this one because you serve on boards too. So I'd love to hear, this is a dual hat question. The question is, Natalie, thanks so much for all of your time and expertise. Really helpful. My question is around board involvement in corporate engagement and solicitations. I know that corporations and foundations value highly board members involved in the process. However, I have asked board members to attend corporate solicitations, and they have truly, quote unquote, screwed it up for us during the conversation. What would you recommend? Is it better just to go it alone with the staff and not bring the board at all?
Interesting. Okay, so she's really, I love your name. That's my grandmother's name. I love it. So more from the perspective of my board members, if I was taking my board members.
She had brought a board member with her to a corporate solicitation, and they said just didn't go well.
Good. Well, yeah, I have been on that side before, and sometimes those don't go well, but sometimes they're great. I think that where the board can be used effectively is that person connected to someone at the bank or that company.
Relationship
that can help drive that. I think that can be very valuable. I think we've all served. I certainly have served on boards, and I think you all have had board members who may not quite get the mission. Those aren't the people you want to take, for sure. Don't take them. And I think you can get the insight from your executive director or your president and CEO of who are the right people, who are the key people who can help drive and be advocates and be ones that can help you drive the donation or drive the gift versus those who are the token person to sit. I wouldn't take a board member for the sake of just taking a board member.
Gotcha.
However, if you get the right person who is passionate about the mission, passionate about the organization, knows it, and is connected to that corporation, it can drive, it will certainly drive the opportunity.
Excellent. I really like this next question too. They're all good. This next question is around in digital and online stuff.
Okay.
So Derek, as Natalie had talked about, Fifth Third has sponsored events in the past. I'd be curious to know, do you place more value in having the logo on websites and presented in social media versus at events where there's on-site recognition?
I want both. I do. Yeah, so I look for both of those. So, I mean, they're kind of they
come together.
They come together now, right? They go hand in hand. So there still are those organizations that are small and maybe don't have the wherewithal to have that social media element yet or the digital side, and that's okay. But I do look for those. If there's the opportunity to do this, that's just more reach for us. It's more reach for the organization. It's more reach for us.
Very good. Excellent. My next question is around product pitches. I don't know if this happens with you, so we'll see, Natalie. The
Okay.
question is, we've worked with other banks in the past. I know that you don't represent this, so your answer may be very different. The question is around that when we've worked with banks in the past, they wanted to bring in their sales individuals to get them to sign up for checking accounts. Is this always a practice with banks and or with any companies? How would you manage where a company would want to either sell a product or sell their services to your audience?
That is a tough one, right?
Yeah, I know you've got a business goals in it.
Well, we certainly do, but I think for what I do, it goes back to, and I kind of look at it from both sides, right? Because I do the charitable and I do the marketing. Yes, bottom line is we are a for-profit business, and it's about new households and checking accounts and loans, and it's about all those things. However, we are also part of our DNA is being a philanthropic company, and so you have to be able to separate at times. There are sometimes just natural ways that those things come together, and there is an opportunity to have something you're doing on the community side, and there's a way to drive traffic with that. For example, Toys for Tots. If we wanted, because we have this large financial center locations across the country, there may be a way to raise funds, raise food, raise toys, whatever it is, in those branches where that's driving traffic, right? Where we have an opportunity to have a conversation. However, I think you're probably speaking to the days of when banks were really hardcore free checking and we want the checking account and that sales type of mentality. And there are certainly some still out there. I will tell you for Fifth Third, we typically don't go that route. So I come from the mind, and the bank does, that if you do the right thing, business naturally comes from that. That's just the way we are as human beings.
Very good. The next question is around boards again, but this is from a different angle. We're always recruiting for board members. Mm-hmm. What would be the best way to approach a company to try and get board members?
Love that question. So for our company, what I do is I work with my counterpart on the community relations CRA side, and we are kind of the conduits for the company to try to make those matchings, because we have it on our side too. And if whatever the corporation is, most likely they have some type of volunteerism or community outreach that their employees are engaged in. So they'll get questions, and we get questions. I get questions from my employees of, how do I get connected? I want to start serving on committees, or I want to serve on boards. And then I get it from the other side too. So I think you will find that the corporations are open to that. And what makes it easy for me, and I try to direct people, is just, send me an email and say, hey, we have board positions open, or we have committee positions open. Here's exactly what we're looking for. Here are the responsibilities, fiduciary or otherwise. And then I just become the connection. So whoever the person from the organization is, who the internal person is, I connect those two, and you guys take it from there. I think that that's a very simple way to try to make those matchings and those pairings. I know from a management standpoint, I'm certainly looking for always our top 30, we call it our leadership team here locally, of where are they engaged and where are they plugged in, to make sure that we are serving the community the way that we should be. Does that help a little bit?
Very much so, okay. Yeah. All right, this next question is interesting. In a good way. It says around communication, wow, Natalie, I can't believe 160 organizations you have to manage in a portfolio in some way. Kudos to you for doing that. But it also goes to my question, which I've talked to other individuals that are in corporate roles like yours, is that they're inundated from nonprofit communications, including our own. Can you give us any advice on what is the ideal communication you would like to receive and the frequency from either your partners or non-partners?
Wow. That is a tricky one.
Yeah.
and those 160, you probably are maybe thinking I'm insane at this point, actually. Some of those are very small. That might be $100 gift up to what, there's a whole gamut there. And across 36 different counties, so a large footprint as well. I think it's always, again, good to ask, right? So I'm glad you asked the question. So maybe ask your corporate partners when you're having those conversations of how they want to be able to be communicated. And once you find out, unfortunately, once you ask the question, you then have to do it.
Yeah.
So that may, be careful if you're going to ask that, because if you're going to make the suggestion that certain people you'll only send email and certain ones you'll only send print newsletters, then you've got to be able to facilitate that on the back end. For me, I would never tell anyone not to send me the stuff. I think, it's important, and I sort through what it is I want to see and what I want to read. I get every annual report for not just the 160, probably for every not-for-profit organization in the state. And I don't read all of those, of course. However, I pick and choose the information I need to make sure that I stay educated. So that's a tough one. And you've got to have the communication. And the way our world is right now, the communicator and the marketing person in me says you just got to keep communicating, adjust what you can, meet the needs of those that you can, but over communication is better than under.
Yep. Well, it kind of goes into you mentioned annual reports, because that is actually two questions down here. And it says I wanted to ask Natalie, what is her view on receiving annual reports? She said, I've heard both that they just go immediately in the trash.
They don't go immediately in the trash for me. I will tell you, this is an interesting one. Do we go here? Okay. So, one, I look at a lot of different things, but when I'm looking at an organization, I think there are so many different, and no matter where you are in the United States, there's a lot of duplication, right?
Right.
You got several organizations doing the same thing. And so I have to really evaluate what is the mission, what does that board look like, and what is the ultimate sustainability of that organization. Your annual report should be nice, but if you're spending more money than what Fifth Third spends on their annual report, I'm kind of going, wait a minute, do they really need a $5,000 check to support this? Because they could probably just
not do that, yeah.
Downgrade their paper quality on their annual report, and that would make a difference. So I do think those things do get noticed, and maybe people that the not-for-profit world does not think about those, the visual or how something looks can impact. You still got to send them, though.
Yeah.
One day we'll get to it. We'll get to a point where you can just send the link and people will go to it. But I think for now we're still in the print world.
Very good. An interesting last question here, because we're a little over time, but okay. I like this question because we really didn't talk about it, but wanted to get your sense.
Sure.
Natalie, have you ever worked in cause marketing partnerships with organizations, and what has been your experience, and any other comments or ideas that you would have?
Yes, I have. And I am a fan of them. I think if they're done the right way, there are media partners out there, media companies that will bring those opportunities to me and other corporations. So sometimes you have that media institute that's partnering with the not-for-profit and then bringing that, so I get a marketing piece of that, but I also get that cause marketing. It just depends. I look at those each individually to find out if it's the right thing for the bank or not. I think it is a trend that will be coming. I think it is a unique way for a corporation to differentiate itself. And you will be seeing Fifth Third doing more of that.
Very cool. Any last minute thoughts before we leave?
This has been great. I will tell you, if you guys want more information, if you go to 53.com in the community, you can see our corporate social responsibility report, which will give you a lot of great information on what kind of things we look for, as well as the 53.com just will tell you a lot about the really cool programs and initiatives that we've put out there to help serve the communities where we are.
Well, thank you. As I mentioned to our audience, Natalie is an incredible professional, has been at this, knows this in and out. And so I appreciate everything that you have done for us today.
This has been great.
Thank you so much. And for everybody on here, remember, we recorded today, so don't worry if you missed anything. You can go back to it. It'll be accessible within 1 week on the Achieve Access as well. And then, of course, you'll be getting notification on taking the survey for today's content, as well as letting us know any other needs that you may have, including CFREs or CEUs. Thank you for everybody. Our next session will be after the July 4th. It will be a session on emails campaigns, and we'll be receiving that information in post-communication follow-up. Thank you again, Natalie.
My
Take
pleasure.
care, everybody, and we wish you the best.